Hello everybody, I'm Crawford Walker. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Elephant's Child, and I'm here today with Philip from Meridian. Philip, would you like to just have a quick introduction of yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on, Crawf. I'm one of the directors of Meridian Corporate Finance. We're a boutique corporate finance firm based in the Solent region, covering the south of England. Really excited to be able to have a bit of a chat about our experiences over the last year.
Great, thank you for that. Maybe we could start off by finding out how 2021 has started for Meridian.
Yeah, it's been an interesting 12 months. 2021 is, I think, beginning to feel a bit more like normality in terms of workloads and what we're seeing. Despite the post-Christmas lockdown, we've seen the ramp up that we were seeing in the second half of 2020 continue. The pandemic has probably given many business owners a bit more of a pause for thought and an opportunity to review their strategy and determine what they're really trying to achieve. In general, we're seeing a lot of optimism. Quite a lot of the business owners we're talking to around April, May last year were probably very concerned about the kind of longevity and future of their businesses. But having got through those kind of first 9 months, and particularly now with kind of hopefully a bit of light at the end of the tunnel in terms of vaccinations coming through and return to the workplace hopefully being announced, we're seeing a lot of people beginning to look at what they want to achieve this year. And that's kind of ranging from the usual kind of pre-budget partial sales and restructurings that we always see, through to kind of the more traditional trade sales, focusing on kind of private equity and longer term exits.
Okay, great. I think we can probably echo that around the COVID side of things and the light at the end of the tunnel sort of thing. Have you seen much of an impact from Brexit as well?
We have seen a bit of disruption. It's primarily been for some of our customers that have supply chains overseas. It's not been a great 12 months, I think, for manufacturers, particularly some of our clients have quite large Asian supply chain concentrations, and they've kind of suffered a bit of a double whammy where during 2020 we obviously had pandemics and localized lockdowns that were disrupting supply chains. And now, obviously, they've got the additional administrative burden and disruptions caused by Brexit. We've begun to see people kind of getting on top of that, though. I think a lot more have been quite conservative around stock holding, for example, which has slightly mitigated a lot of the issues that were anticipated for the first quarter of this year.
Okay, great. And then at a more general point, could you maybe explain why you enjoy working with companies such as Elephant's Child?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're very focused on a particular niche within kind of the advisory community. We've always focused on advising owner-managed SME businesses, particularly ones looking at undertaking any form of transactions. That's typically sales, fundraisers, MBOs, MBIs, and family succession planning. However, many business owners, in our experience, focus on building extremely cash generative and successful businesses, but not necessarily spending the time focusing on developing those out in preparation for a sale. Unfortunately, a lot of people come to us having been driven by some kind of event, not always pleasant ones, and that's one of the reasons for selling their business. We've been interfacing with the team at Elephant's Child now for 5-6 years, and one of the things that has been brilliant is generally when we're working together on a transaction, we know that those companies have been prepared for the sale. They've got the key elements of governance, key elements of compliance, but also have the strategy around kind of where the growth plan's going and where the investment needs to be made within senior management in particular, a lot of help around building that out. So from our perspective, it's great that we can work with clients where a lot of the skeletons that come out during the sale process and typically derail those have already been identified and to a certain extent dealt with where possible as well. So hopefully over the coming years, it'll be a very long-term relationship where we can work with clients from early on and make sure that we're getting customers the best outcome that we can possibly get in order to maximize their value on the sale of their business.
Yeah, I think I can echo that again. I think it works very well all round. So actually on that point, I know that we recently just completed a very successful project. I think people will probably find it quite interesting to understand how that process works. So obviously without naming any names, could you give us a bit of an indication of how that process went through?
Yeah, of course. I mean, one of the kind of sad aspects of corporate finance in many ways is that not all transactions are successful. I think across the UK, about 50% of sales succeed. And we've always taken the approach in the same way as you guys at Elephant's Child have, of putting the time in up front to try and maximise the result at the back end and ensure that all of these issues have kind of been borne out. The client that we were working on recently was actually in a very, very good position. They built a lovely business, extremely cash generative. Unfortunately, it was an aspect of timing. We had the elections in 2019, which were not a great time for people looking to make acquisitions. And then obviously we went into the pandemic, and now we're kind of in Brexit and dealing with that as we come out of all of this. The client was very keen to look at an exit, and with the help of Elephant's Child, we had negotiated with a couple of private equity and trade investors. But unfortunately, the nature of their business, where although it showed growth, it wasn't going to show the kind of 2 to 3 times growth profile that we were looking for in a private equity sale, simply meant that route wasn't going to be feasible in the current structure. However, there was a bit of a disparity between the shareholders where their aspirations and their time frames were quite different. So we worked with everybody on the transaction to pull together a partial sale, which allowed some of the shareholders who were in more of a rush to exit, obviously focusing on crystallising at the time entrepreneurs relief in order to try and get that tax efficiently. We then worked to help them build out a growth plan and a forecast, and that eventually led to us going to the market for funding. And we approached a range of institutional funders to try and help finance the transaction, which in the end actually caused a potential trade buyer to come out into the open. So over the course of 2 years, that was a multi-stage transaction. And one of the things that we try and always look at are all the options available for a shareholder, because ultimately, long term, keeping a business and taking dividend income, even though it's tax inefficient, can be a great result for people. And at the other end, there is the trade sale, which most people look at. So trying to work out the strategy and work out a pathway to achieving people's results is a really, really important aspect of any corporate financer's role. And in this one, it was a multi-step process to get that business prepared, but ultimately got a sale away for the shareholders that got them the outcome they were looking for.
Right. Philip, that's great. Thank you very much for your time today. I look forward to doing many more successful deals with you in the future and to having another chat again soon. Thanks very much.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Crawford. Bye-bye.